Hello, welcome to the Liberated Multitasker. I'm so excited. I have such a special treat for you today. My husband will be cooking crawfish pie. We're going to start by heating our 6-quart Dutch oven, and we're going to melt 1.5 sticks of butter. I will be linking this recipe in the description notes below. We've made a few changes, but just stay tuned to see what they are. We're going to be adding 2 cups of diced onion, 1 cup of diced celery, and a 1/2 cup of diced green bell pepper and a 1/2 cup of diced red bell pepper. And we're just going to mix all that together. Now, what's not shown in the video is us using our Vidalia chopping wizard to dice our onions, bell peppers, and celery. Now it's time to add our seasonings. We'll be adding 2 teaspoons of sea salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, and 1 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Now we'll be cooking while stirring for the next 8 minutes. Don't want anything to stick, just blending the flavors all together. Now we had about a 1/2 cup of bell peppers that were already chopped that he's decided to go ahead and add to the dish. Now it's been about 4 minutes, and now we're going to go ahead and add 2 tablespoons of minced garlic. And then he will continue to cook it for the last 4 minutes. Now the next step is to get ready to make our roux. So we're going to need a 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour. He's going to be adding this a little at a time, cooking and stirring constantly for the next 6 to 8 minutes. Your goal is to have the roux a golden color. Want to make sure the flour, it doesn't stick on the bottom, is well incorporated and cooked in this mixture. He's adjusting the heat, doesn't want it to cook too fast, but he's decided he needs just a little extra flour. So he ends up adding about another 1/4 cup. Now he's adding 1 cup of diced tomatoes. We're using fire roasted tomatoes, and he's going to cook this for about 4 minutes. After the additional 4 minutes after adding the tomatoes, it's about time to add our stock and our heavy cream. So you want to add this a little at a time until it's thick and creamy. So we're using 1 cup of heavy whipping cream, and we're going to be using about a cup of homemade chicken stock. You can use chicken stock, shrimp stock, or seafood stock. I was unable to find any shrimp or seafood stock locally, but I had plenty of chicken stock on hand. So he's just adding this a little along, stirring it the whole time. You can see it's really coming together, nice and creamy. And he's going to cook this for about 5 minutes. Now after this is cooked for about 5 minutes, it will be time to add the crawfish tails. We're adding about 2 1/4 pounds of crawfish tails that were left over from a crawfish boil that we had the end of April at our home. So the next day, us and a few friends ended up peeling and deveining the leftover crawfish and vacuum sealing them. We ended up with about 4 pounds that were left. And I can tell you today, I'm so glad that we did. Now, my husband's adding 2 tablespoons of chopped fresh parsley. And this is it for the ingredients of our crawfish pie filling. We're going to let this mixture cook for an additional 10 minutes while stirring it occasionally. Now this is enough mixture for 2 pies or 18 mini pies. Now we will only be making 1 pie today, but I will freeze the remaining crawfish pie filling so that we can make a pie on another day. Now my husband has tasted it, decided the flavor and seasoning is spot on. So now it's time to cut it off and let it cool for about 30 minutes. Now for the pie crust. And if you watched my homemade apple tart video, then you'll see in that video where I made my pie crust. So I'll link that recipe in the description notes below. So I took 2 of those pie crusts out of the freezer for this recipe today. Now usually I divide my pie crust up equally because 90% of the time I'm only needing 1 crust at a time. However, our bottom crust needs to be a little bit bigger, so I do have to make a few adjustments. So we take the pan and put it over the pie crust and decide it needs just a little more rolling out, and my husband decides to assist in that process. We're just about there. We're going to measure the pan again, holding it over the pie crust, and we decide it's just right. So now I'm going to transfer the pie crust into the pan. This could be a bit tricky. I find that rolling it over my rolling pin helps. At this point, it is nice to have an extra set of hands. We need to adjust it just a little bit, and it takes both of us so we don't tear the pie crust. Now we have to work pretty fast because there's lots of butter in this and it can melt. We place this pie crust in the fridge while we're working on the second one. Now that it's ready, my husband is spooning out the crawfish pie mixture into our bottom crust. We debated on whether to use this cast iron skillet or a pie pan, but I'm really glad we went with the cast iron skillet. We did that because it is taller and would hold more filling, and it was a good decision. So now that this is just about full, we're going to get ready to transfer our top pie crust onto the pan. Now we'll need to mash those edges together. I fold some, mash some, just tuck them in. And we're just almost ready to put it in the oven. Now I've preheated my oven to 375 degrees. Still working on those edges. Then I'm going to cut some slits into the top crust. And our last step is to add some egg wash. I just use 1 egg and a tablespoon of water that's blended, and we just brush that egg wash on. Now we end up baking this pie for 35 to 40 minutes. And I have to tell you, we had friends over to eat this, and it was phenomenal. So delicious. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I really hope to see you soon.